What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're going to take a look at Kingdom Hearts 3, the Steam version, finally getting a proper Steam version here. And we're going to take a look at that over on the Steam Deck and the Lenovo Legion Go, so we can see performance here for the deck and for the Z1 Extreme over there and see how that's making out. So let's go ahead, we'll get into it and we'll take a look at the settings real quick. This game's pretty easy to run, so I'm not going to go too deep with a whole lot of settings and checking everything out because there's plenty of room here for you to play. But 800p here, 100% on the resolution scale to start with, unlock frame rate to see what we're doing. And then over here, we're going to be medium on the preset. Now, the thing is, if you want to make any changes, unlike most games where once you set the preset, you could go in here and make a change and then it'll switch to custom, you can't do that here or click on anything. So after you set your preset, if you want to change something individually, like for me, I want motion blur off, just click custom here. That'll keep whatever preset you had on, and then you can go here and make whatever changes you want to make to your anti-aliasing, your occlusion, your motion blur, whatever. I'm leaving it all at medium. I just wanted to turn motion blur off for this one. So anyway, 800p, 100% resolution scale, medium preset, 4 gigs of VRAM here on the Steam Deck. And ultimately, I thought this ran really well. You can certainly bring some settings down a little bit if you need to, and we can work with that resolution scale, which we'll take a look at as well. But for the most part, I'm happy with medium settings, and there's plenty of room here to lock this game down to 30 FPS, 40 FPS, 45, 60, and just play however you want to play here. Some of us are going to prefer more frame rate, and some of us are going to prefer less or more battery or whatever the case may be. And with this game, it's not going to be that hard to really adjust it and run it however you want. You can see here, ultimately, performance is pretty good. We do lose GPU usage a lot of the time though, without seeing super high CPU all the time, so I don't know if it's a core thing or a driver thing, or maybe game updates eventually, because this did just come out. But I noticed it on other handhelds as well, not just the Steam Deck. All around, all the handhelds I've tested this on, there are just oddities when it comes to dips in the resources being used, the performance, and like the frame times and dipping in frame rate. But other than that though, overall, I think it runs really good, and there's a lot of room here to play around and get it how you want. Now, when it comes to that resolution scale, let's go ahead, pause this, and take a look at our settings. Go into display, and we'll go ahead and switch this down to 75. You've got 50, 75, a few other options here. 50 is a little rough. I'll do 75 and just show the difference here. We're going to go up about 20, 25 FPS, sometimes more there, and it does the same thing on the other handhelds as well. The resolution definitely makes a difference, even though we see a similar thing with the resources being used and all that. Of course, if you want to lock down your frame rate to 60 or 30 in-game or on your deck, you can do that and help yourself out as well. So we added more overhead with the 75%, then we locked it to 60, and for the most part gives us a really smooth experience on here, but there are plenty of times that is still gonna dip and come under 60. There's no real true lock 60. Even if I bring the settings down lower than this, which I've messed around with, there's still no real 100% lock 60, because there's just these odd dips and things that are going to happen in the game. Again, even when you don't see super high usage, it just tends to happen, and it's not really a deck thing. It's all the handhelds I've tried it on. But yeah, ultimately you're able to run it really well here, and it's fine. I just stick with the 100% scale for myself and pretty much these medium settings, but you can mess around and get it to run however you want there. I'm going to pop things back over to 100% here. If I was at 75, I would maintain 60 in this battle much easier though. I did notice that, but I was recording and running the 100 here, which allowed it to dip under, but it felt fine on the Steam Deck, didn't have any problem with that. But if you don't want that to happen, you could keep that 75, or like I said, a lot of you might just opt for that 30 or 40 or 45 FPS experience on the Steam Deck, and it might depend on if you're on LCD or on the OLED. I happen to be doing most of all my testing here on the OLED for this game, so that's pretty much where we're at with that. Of course, usually running my 4 gigs of VRAM, which worked out just fine for this game. It doesn't require a ton, so there weren't really any issues there, and we had plenty dedicated for what the game wanted. And of course, the ship area where you travel back and forth and all that runs super easy. You won't have any trouble there. There are in-town areas that run a little rough though, to be aware of. But let's go over and switch and take a look at the Lenovo Legion Go, because things are kind of similar. We'll get more performance out of this chip, of course, and with these devices, but I'm going to use 1200p as my base. So let's go ahead and take a look at settings. 1200p, 100%, which we're not going to totally stick with, but we're going to start with that and unlock to see what's going on there. And then as far as graphics, we're going to use the same medium settings we used over on the Steam Deck, medium preset, and then I just turned off motion blur. So same thing going on there. Now 1200p is a little bit much for this game. on medium, and even if I bring things down, we see those same like dips and stutters and issues even if we're not really hammering the CPU or the GPU. So again, I don't know if it's a driver related, game related, what cores it's using on the on these APUs, or what the deal is, but you do see this across all the devices, from the deck to this Go to the Ally, and all my experience with that. So I just want to make note of that. But I am running 20 watts here. I felt like that was a good enough in between. Even if I go up to 25 handheld mode, it doesn't stop any of these dips or stutters or issues. We're not really taxing the system to begin with, so it didn't really make a difference. So 20 watts was fine for me here for this, but of course adjust it and run it however you want to there. But I think for me with this one, unlike the Steam Deck at 800p, if I'm going 1200p, I either want to reduce this to 800, or for me here at 1200, come in here to the resolution scale and do 75% again. Now by switching back over to the 75% like we did over on the deck at the 1200p, we'll see a similar jump here in performance. Frame times actually get a little better, overall performance pretty good, and we gain anywhere from 10 to 20, sometimes more in our FPS. And it gives us more overhead, a little easier to lock down the frame rate if you want to. You could certainly do 30 or 60 or whatever on the Go or on your Ally or whatever the case. And if we do our VSync lock here, our fresh lock here, because I'm plugged into my capture card at 60 hertz right now, it's going to cap itself to 60, and I wanted to take a look at that anyway here. And of course we're lowering, we're not hitting the GPU as much, we're in the 70s, CPU's not having a problem, and this feels really good on the Legion Go. It was super solid, very smooth by locking this down. 20 watts was fine, but even at that you're still going to run into times where you have some frame time issues or dips in the frame rate. Again, that's not seemingly like a resource issue with these handhelds, something else software related, be the game, drivers, whatever the case, just from what I'm seeing anyway. Turn that lock back off here and you can see what the full frame rate is, what our overhead is here, and it's a good little bit over 60, which is why that was feeling pretty smooth. So I think the 75% 1200p medium preset 20 watts pretty good for me here, jumping around many different parts of the game, checking out performance. But the main thing is here, I don't have to show a lot of different settings for any of these devices. The game runs well enough, minus these oddities that I'm seeing in the drops and stuff, to where there's plenty of room for whoever wants more frame rate can get that, and whoever wants to save battery or run lower frame rate isn't going to have a problem with that either. There's plenty of room for tweaking and adjusting and getting what you want out of this game on whichever particular handheld you might be on. Unlike some games we test that are like newer, really hard to run, AAA or something, where you really got to dive in and see what settings even allow you to get away with maybe playing the game. Now there are some areas in towns, be it on the deck or on the Go here or other devices, that do run a bit rougher, whether you lock them down or they're unlocked or whatever the case may be, or even if you lower your settings, they're just weird frame time and load in areas, and when there's NPCs and stuff, it's not always the best, but it works out just fine. I think maybe some updates to the game could potentially do this, since it's doing it to all the devices. Maybe it's not as much driver related as game, but there's definitely something interesting happening there. But this is a game I love. Played through it on Xbox, I played through it over on Epic on PC before, and I'm looking forward to playing through some more here on Steam, be it the Steam Deck, Legion Go, Ally, MSI Claw, who knows, I'll pick up one of them and play. It's working out just fine, but I would like to see some smoothing out of whatever those frame rate drops and frame times and stuff, those issues might be. Alright guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video as always, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.